Well, this job is a little bit embarrassing to talk about, to be honest. When I first started out in 2017, man, there was a job that happened that I really lost a lot of money on. And I learned some valuable lessons. So that was kind of the champion mentality side of things, is I learned a very valuable lesson in this job. Hey guys, welcome to day 13 of my 100-day video challenge. Super excited to have you guys back here. Thank you all that you have been kind of chiming in and tuning in here on this 100-day video challenge. Super excited for that. This week we are talking about pricing, but today I thought it would be a very interesting thing to talk about. This particular episode in my business kind of revolved around pricing, but also knowledge about the actual job and learning a thing or two. So I want to share that story today. Back in 2017, the first issue was, we don't really, or at the time, we didn't really work in Folsom, which is a few towns over. We kind of wanted to keep it centralized, but I also wanted to balance that with staying busy, right? So this guy called me from Folsom, and he had a few drywall pieces that needed to be repaired. And I said, okay, I could do that, right? So I think he had a total of 5 drywall pieces where a plumber came out. I think there was a leak going on in his house, and he cut a whole bunch of probably little, 6x6 or 12x12 squares, out of his various walls, many different rooms, right? There was 5 different cuts throughout the house. And I said, yeah, I can come out there and do that. And he wanted a quote. I quoted him without ever seeing it, without even seeing pictures. That was probably the first issue. I told him $250 for all of these drywall patches. He had the pieces of drywall. And the thing about it, right? So a thing about estimating and pricing is after you do it for a while, you can start getting a gist of how people sound, right? This guy was like, I think, I wanted, I don't even remember how it went. This was back in 2017, but I wanted to go out and see it. I obviously wanted to have a much higher price, but he says, oh, this will be easy. I already have the pieces of drywall. The plumber left the pieces of drywall. It'll be a simple pop in and you're done, right? So I'm like, okay, $250, and we'll come out there and do it. Well, this guy lived in Folsom, which was probably 30 miles from where I lived. I drove out there one time. I put him in, and then he wanted them textured, obviously, so I sprayed some texture on there, and I gotta say, right, the texture looked horrible, right? But I'm like, I don't really know. That was my very first time ever shooting texture out of a can. And sure enough, he's like, dude, this texture looks horrible. And then in the meantime, right, when I first got there to actually do the job, before I did the texture and all that, he asked me, he says, oh, can you also paint these? And so before I even walked through and saw how many there were and what rooms they were in, or even if he had the paint, I said, yeah, I could paint them for $50. Never give a price without actually seeing it and knowing what needs to be done. Okay, so let's kind of roll into this story here. So I do the drywall patch, I do the texture, my first time ever shooting texture, and it looked horrible. Okay, I ended up, and then I think so. And the thing was, he wanted me to paint it. He didn't have any of the paint, right? He didn't have any paint. He did. He had some old paint in the garage that was obviously skinned over. So I had to take paint chips off, take it down to Lowe's, get it matched up. And then I painted them, and he's like, dude, this, that night, I think he called me that night, and he's like, dude, this texture looks horrible. And I had absolutely no clue how to texture at all. So that night I was kind of freaking out. I was watching a whole bunch of YouTube videos on how to spray some texture. And I ended up going back, and this was probably my 3rd or 4th time back to the house, because the first time, I put on 1 coat of drywall, and this was very new, so I didn't know how to I didn't know about 20-minute mud. I was still using, the regular stuff that takes a whole day to dry. So each coat was like a day. I could only do a coat in a day, and then I had to go home, drive 30 miles back to my house, and then go back there the next day. So 3 or 4 times into this thing, he finally called me. He's like, this texture looks horrible. So I do a bunch of research. I find out how to texture. I go over there and I shoot some texture, and it actually looked really good. I was actually surprised by what I could do. That turned out really well. And then I had to paint the stuff. Obviously, I had to let the texture dry. So 1 more trip back home, and then I had to go back and I had to paint it again. So I think all in all, I probably had 5 or 6 trips, 30 miles in this house, and I made a total of $300. It was absolutely insane. I think I was probably working on this thing for probably a week, maybe even a week and a half. It was kind of an insane job. So a few different learning lessons from there, right, are don't price things without seeing them. Don't price things without knowing exactly what needs to be done. And painting, make sure they have the paint. Sometimes people are like, oh yeah, I got the paint, but it's in their garage. It's been sitting in their garage for 15 years and it's skinned over. They don't even know, right? They have the paint. I mean, they're not lying, but the paint is like skinned over and it's not usable, right? So definitely get some good pertinent information before you actually quote a job. And number 2, make sure you know what you are doing. If you don't know what you're doing, find out a way to figure out what you are doing. Figure out how to do it correctly, or be honest with the client and say, hey, I don't know how to do that. I had another job. It was a cement job. A client had me do a whole bunch of other stuff at his house, and he also needed a 3x3 piece of cement covered, where basically they jackhammered it out to put in a new drain line. So he wanted that piece of cement covered in, and I told him straight up, I'm like, hey, I've never done cement. I mean, I've done cement like in fence posts, but I've never done this kind of cement, like driveway cement. And he's like, oh, that's fine, you know. And he's like, go for it, you know, have fun. And so he let me learn. He knew all from the outright that I'm learning on this job, and that was cool. But definitely this drywall job was something that I probably should not have taken on. And definitely not quoted it without seeing it. So yeah, that's a little bit insight from, you know, the actual pricing aspect. And again, it's kind of embarrassing, but that's one of my embarrassing stories from when I first started out in business. The whole thought process of this 100-day video challenge is to take my learning experiences, my successes and my failures from when I first started out in business, which is, you know, 2017, January 1st, 2017, and then compare it to kind of how we're doing business today, which today is September 20th, 2023. So we've been in here for about 6 years. I've learned a lot. In fact, I've actually opened up my own coaching and consulting business where I help handyman all around the world either start up a new business or grow their business so that they can hire employees. I absolutely love the business aspect of this. It's really fun creating systems and processes so that basically your business can run without you. It's really exciting, and it's exciting to see people go from kind of struggling in the business and not having time to do anything to actually discovering that freedom that they started this business for in the first place. So you can actually book a free consultation call with me at handymanjourney.com. I would absolutely love to talk with you about your business and see how we might be able to help you. But I hope you gained some information from this video today. Drop a comment in the comment section below with what your thoughts are on today. If you've ever made a crazy mistake like I have when I first started out my business with that drywall job, it's absolutely insane. I still remember it like it was yesterday, kind of the feeling going through that house and just the feeling of doing the work, already knowing that like I've lost so much money and I kind of feel over my head in some of this stuff. So it was absolutely insane. I've learned so much from that day, but want to impart that kind of information on you guys. So drop a comment, like this video, and subscribe to this channel. I would love to have you along for the 100 days. If you're in it for the next 100 days, go ahead and drop a comment. Say, I'm in it for 100 days. I would love to have you along on this journey. I'm super stoked. We're going to keep talking about pricing. Next week, we're going to be talking about sales. I'm super stoked about that because that is a huge, huge aspect of the handyman business. But we still got a few days talking about pricing. So let's get to it. We will see you guys tomorrow.